I know that it wasn't, I decided it wasn't. We just really this road. Um, turned out it was right at the house, really came about, and it had a fun time. The road was in so I dropped them on July 4th, and I wanted to name them something.
Patriotic mayors.
After Scottsville mayors, I didn't want to name them after any more dead presidents, is enough thing to name them dead presidents. So I named them Nancy Gilbert and Thacker and Mark Ruth. Turns out it was a girl of two boys, perfect, and I ended up keeping that. Yeah. Right, yeah, the other two, and the mom ended up keeping. Okay. And Stephen kept her, and the other two we sent to our friend whose kids want to put the names on. Oh, they have their names as middle names, so there's Rocky, Raymond, and yeah. It's like just few names.
Well, I very good. I feel. As we served together for a while, just he reminded me a lot. My dad had a copy of it. He was doing something like that. Those fun challenges.
Yeah. I never did get to know that lived here.
He used to, if you talk to him, you go to his porch. That's where he went to David. Sit on there and smoke. He had like a big warmer thing. Like you could be out there in the winter time. I've never seen it before. Like it's like a first level. You could almost look at a barbecue chair or something. He did it because he smoked. Very fancy. Be nice to have warm outside.
Right. Oh, what was that? That's Liz online, right?
Just making sure you can hear me over there.
All right, so we are all here. Let's begin. I'd like to call the meeting to order at 7:02 p.m. We have quorum because we're all here. Do we need a roll?
Yes.
Okay, roll call, please.
Mommy and Divine. Here. Lisa Casapiano,
Here.
Dan Grisco,
Here.
Elizabeth Knotts,
Here remotely from Scottsville, Virginia.
Due to illness, correct?
What?
Due
Lisa.
to illness.
Oh yeah, I have a cold. Sorry.
Thank
Carter
you.
has a cold too.
Thank you for logging in. Remote is an option and we're so happy for it. And thank you for not making us sick too.
Shin.
All right, thank you. I want to say thank you so much, Miss Melody, for giving us 3 months worth of minutes. I really appreciate it. It was something that I feel is important. I think, and I know you do too, and I know that you have a lot going on, and I know that we had a lot of transition issues. So I totally understand that there was a lot going on. And they're important, so thank you so much for getting them to us. I don't think we have a special meeting though. We didn't have a special meeting in January.
No, I sent you an
It
email.
was
now.
nice.
It was nice, yeah. I started putting things.
I kept going, ding, and I'm like, what now? Oh my God.
Being
Yeah.
responsive.
It was very nice. Okay, so can we agree to the agenda?
Yes, and make a motion to approve the agenda as is.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, approved, thank you. Minutes. I didn't notice anything, I think everything looks good.
For the March meeting. And this might just be because I can't remember anything, but we tabled the discussion of changing the meeting time, and then we also tabled the discussion regarding fire and rescue squad in our local text. I didn't think that we had tabled that. I think we even voted on that in the February meeting. It's for B.
Yeah.
One B.
We did vote on it, but I don't remember which one.
It was in February, right here. So I don't know why it was listed as being tabled in March.
But we did table it 1 month and then we had it the next month.
But you would
Passed it in
backwards, wouldn't it?
February.
If we voted in February and then tabled it in March. Was there, yeah, I don't think we had any further discussion. Okay. Can you look into that?
It's
See what,
voice vote approved unanimously.
yeah.
I listened to the meetings.
That makes sense.
Do you remember what the context was, what we were tabling specifically?
Well, I think what happened was, I remember, we went through the social club thing, we went through the draft of the laundry thing, and this was the one that we were gonna ask the town attorney to push it forward, but we did, and then we said it's fine.
But
Now, I might be wrong, I could be merging that with one council too. Am I merging that? Because I think that's, we did check with the town council.
I'm just, yeah, that would, so in 4B, the February meeting, it says fire and rescue squad station. A motion was made by me to amend the zoning text to special use permit. Elizabeth not seconded the motion. And then Lisa called for a vote and everybody approved it unanimously. And then in March, it said it was tabled.
Yeah.
Or something was tabled. I just, that. was
Well,
the-
oh, wait, well, this is the report by town council, so maybe town council was the one that tabled it pending.
Oh,
Further, we made our recommendation to.
That's what it is.
Council.
okay, okay. Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
I have a question. Unless you were gonna go on with that. Does that sound familiar to you?
Yeah, we tabled it there. The reason we tabled it is because we wanted to have Mr. Bowen give us a.
Chime in on
And then he did, because he only comes once a month. He was, just so there was clarity, and then we voted for it.
Okay.
Gotcha. Okay,
Thank you for paying close attention.
I should have paid closer attention, except that that's town council.
Okay, you talking about, listening to the meetings and stuff like that, were you able to understand much of it? You were, okay, because whenever I go and listen to town council, especially when they're in their table mode, I can't hear half of what's going on, and I think it's kind of well past time that we figure out how we handle, you have.
Yeah, we've changed, when they're in their table mode, we got smaller tables. And then we have 2 of these, one on each end, so you can now hear everybody
Okay,
on both ends.
okay. Because when you said that, I was like, she could have been hearing. But you're right, I have not listened for a while.
Yeah, and they wouldn't hurt next meeting to remind people to talk towards the mic.
Well, I mean, it's ridiculous in this day and age that we don't have something that's gonna do this correctly. You know, it's gonna be a resource, we need to be able to hear it.
Good point.
That's honestly why I, when I have to participate online because I'm sick or something, I hate it.
Yeah.
I can't hear
You
it.
can't hear it. Yeah, and it's very disorienting.
Yeah.
How are you feeling about it, Liz?
I just said it's hard to articulate exactly what people are saying. I shut my screen door and reduced all of the sound so I could really focus. At work, we have an owl, and it's like this really advanced piece of machinery that goes to each person as they speak and hones in on them. It's like $3,000 as you're writing the budget, Javier.
No, my nonprofit, one of my nonprofits on the board has it, and
It's amazing.
it's a wish list, I'll put it that way.
Yeah, the owl is just so great.
Well,
But yeah, unless I'm like paying extra close attention, then
well,
it's
we need
hard
more
to articulate.
fix in here that work correctly.
or whatever.
So is it helpful if we move them in a little more? Like these two are operational, right?
Yes.
So Molly, do you want to swing that over to swing them along too?
Yeah. Maybe that will help.
Yeah.
I would love some closed caption, actually.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at.
It'll work. Let us know how that works.
Lisa, you got quieter.
About what?
You got quieter.
I know, it's because we're all screaming in here. But that's good. We'll just talk really loud. Are all four of them operational or five? How does that work?
It just plugs in, so.
She's talking about each speaker.
Yeah, is it just
Like, are there
the
four
Saturday that
songs?
picks it up or is it the
Supposed
four?
to be non-directional.
There's not much. We need them.
I'm sorry, Liz, I know I'm probably
Busting her ear.
busting your eardrums out.
I just want to go on record saying, Melody, women need to apologize less in life.
Yes, I do. You're right.
Can you hear, try and say something?
I had another question about, okay, so when the minutes are done, then they have to get approved, and then once they're approved, they get uploaded to the website? Okay, awesome. And when does the video get uploaded?
I've been uploading them the day
The
after,
day after, that's
starting
fantastic.
last year,
Okay.
last month.
Yeah, and I recognize that the video is available, so even if we don't have minutes, and sometimes we don't see more about the conversation, not just the minutes. So it's nice, it's amazing that we have the technology, if we can get it to work 100%, it's great that we have that option. It's just sometimes minutes could be like a faster way of getting at something, because the meeting could be 3 hours long in some cases.
Not tonight though.
Not tonight, no. No.
And Liz, did that help, like picking
Yeah,
that up and setting it up toward them?
Are you talking to me?
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
The
That's
question
okay.
is, has the audio improved at all since we made some adjustments to the microphone?
It's hard to hear Melody for sure. Javier seems to be right by the camera. So he sounds good.
that's just because I'm hiding.
Okay, well, I could hear you there. One person can only talk at a time.
All right, Liz, please, if there's anything that you're missing, we'll try to stop. But actually, we have such a short agenda today that mostly you're gonna be hearing from Lincoln, so hopefully his microphone works. But next up,
I
Oh, we
make a
have-
motion to approve the meeting minutes from January, February, and March this year.
Second.
okay, all in favor?
Hi.
Thank you. Awesome. Okay, report on relevant actions by the town council.
Liz, I might not sound good either way, but do I sound better this way or do I sound better this way?
You sound fine, Dan.
Okay, well, I sound better than I thought. I thought I would give you options to choose from. One of the things that I will credit our chair with and this commission, that the idea of addressing the minutes, I think was helpful for the town council. I, for one, was somebody who haven't overly been concerned about minutes, and so we've had many indecisive comments as town council about minutes. And just varying so many different things about our own minutes, not related to these. So you might say the action here lit a fire under me to say, let's be decisive as town council. So I went with that as an agenda because I felt responsible that we would come back, and I think Javier, you can testify there was a fire lit, so to speak, that trying to figure out what to do. And it wasn't that staff was at fault. In fact, if anything, I would say the town council was at fault. We were at fault because we in the council, me being one of them, had indecisively dealt with the issue. And so we more decisively understood our own expectations, and then also our amazing staff is given the opportunity to kind of step in, and they had some good suggestions about things to do, about ways to look at it. And you see the result of their work, not that it's just that we as a council have, I think, left. And
So what are your expectations?
the expectations would be, I think, come back to, would be the staff would take minutes, and what they tried to do first was correct our lacking with the town council itself. Mr. Bolin brought out the fact that there was a point not that long ago where the county was like a year behind, and I, correct me if I'm wrong about this, that there's not a technical requirement in terms of time, but it's impractical to be forever to get minutes, you know, it slows the work of government down. And so in the end, as the council talked, the staff, I think would you say you were somewhat free to come up with a good solution, maybe?
Yeah.
That way?
So
So
we have,
is this a policy you all drew up, or is this just a kind of informal?
it's something that we sometimes don't get, which is direction, as staff, which is always appreciated. So we heard from all council together on minutes, and that's usually, that's always helpful for the staff, to get staff direction from council. So part of it was, an acknowledgement of what substance, what material town council wanted in their minutes. So we got some clarity that brevity was reasonable. I got, as quickly as you could put up the video with timestamps was appreciated by town council. And then they left with recommendations about asking, other boards and commissions to appoint a secretary to help out with minutes. And then, we were given just an opportunity to express that we were prioritizing other items and then wrapping up, looping back and wrapping up on minutes. So we had a whole agenda item that talked maybe like 30 minutes.
So is there something that we can expect, or?
I would like to recommend in the future for our commissions to have, secretaries. We have boards that already help out with minutes in that way.
Is that appropriate for us to take our own minutes?
It is more than appropriate because you all will approve your own minutes. You're putting a record of what actions you guys are doing during your meetings.
Okay.
Uniquely, ARB has been in planning commission, but every other board or every other committee now takes their own minutes with the secretary, which alleviates a lot of administrative time for us.
One thing we have done, to kind of help me was we were on QuickBooks Desktop, which is so convoluted that it's very old school. We went to QuickBooks Online, which now all of our bank information, all of the, just different information is now automatically pulled in. I don't have to sit there and enter everything. All we have to do now is just go ahead and match it up and let it fly, basically. So it's gonna cut a lot of time off. Having to sit down, enter, turn around, pay a check, you know, so it's not as complicated. And once we set up, we'd also talked about putting our payroll system on to the QuickBooks Online, because right now we're with ADP, and ADP can't be put in. I have to do our different revenue.
They can't be what?
It can't be pulled in. So we have to do everything by hand. So now we're gonna try to switch everything over to ADP, or from ADP to QuickBooks. They do everything ADP does exactly cheaper. We did find that out, so I was excited about that. So that'll take some time off also.
We found, going back to what you just said, that our new town clerk has brought a lot of life and ideas to her position, and it's been very helpful, other than we got to keep you healthy.
Yeah, no more. They're not gonna get me down and knew any more than my arm does for sure. That was enough, one time was enough for me.
No, but thank you, and I will say thank you to the planning commission. I was all just thankful to you all for, you set me in motion that I would not have done otherwise, and I think it was good for us to do that. The other thing is, the council is very much hot and heavy on the budget, and as we're looking at the budget for next year, it has to be passed by basically the end of the month, and we've had some special meetings. I think it's fair to say that there's a pretty decent agreement about the priorities, mostly are paying for the police and paying for the staff. There's a little bit of debate about, do we do cost of living increases? And then in the end, trying to have a balanced budget. One of the ideas we talked about as a planning commission was that we would suggest a grant writer, and that was not one of many things that in the most recent conversation was scratched. So, except not saying that's final, but in terms of our own trying to balance the budget, we went through a list of kind of trying to figure out how those are. So I will say, both the people out there and people on the planning commission, any input you want to have on the town budget, now's the time, meaning the coming days, next few town council meetings, if you want it. And there'll also be a public hearing toward the end of the month, whenever we get to the point of having a finalized budget.
Well, I don't know what planning commission, what do we have suggested for the fiscal year budget for planning commission?
Some money for sidewalks.
But, not the capital, but the planning commission's budget itself.
Operating wise, this fiscal year, $1,000, which from what I remember, wasn't an email out on this.
Okay,
That was usually passed through from grants, because you see 2 years ago, 16,000 passed through that budget line, which would have been 21, 22 maybe. To me, it's not clear when we look through expenses. I think this last year, what we spent it on was pizza for when we did strategic planning. And I don't know if we need 1,000 for pizza.
How are they? I know, oh, sorry.
Yeah.
We've had some conversations, not recently, but in the past about if planning commissioners themselves want to be trained.
Mhm.
And so there have been, I don't know that was something we recently talked about, but in years past, there's been money in the budget where it could send people to a seminar or something like that, and that's a valuable thing.
And I think that's how that funding should be used, in the same way that a council member or staff member would want to either go to a relevant conference. We should be able to support that a little bit. So I have some budgeted in to try to make that feasible. So as we start thinking about what kind of professional development you guys would want, that's the opportunity. We talked about it generally more in regards to staff. But it makes a lot of sense, just to kind of build your knowledge base so you can bring something back to Scottsville and what you guys do here, as a commission.
Yeah, I think
That
that's
sounds great,
Yeah, any planning commission that's interested
Yeah.
or sees things, or is it the VML sometimes about that information in there about opportunities?
Yeah, so Virginia Municipal League, I probably need to do some research and see what in the past maybe planning commission have gone to, or just ask around. I'm sure that we'll end up, now that we brought up the conversation, kind of like learning a new word. Now you'll start hearing stuff that will feel relevant, but it's just communication with us if you have something. And it's always fruitful to share with everybody on the commission also, hey, this is coming up, this seems interesting.
I know these were old minutes, thank you, Javier. These were old, they were talked about, and maybe I'm repeating something you said before, but the council, several other town councils brought up the idea of potentially changing meetings, and in the end, we didn't change anything. You know, we then talked about it here, but I know just in terms of what we did, nothing ever changed.
Still Mondays.
I'm still curious about the minutes.
Mhm.
So you all from now on are not gonna be doing the minutes for us?
I'm bringing it up as if you would like to appoint a secretary. It would be appreciated by
If
staff,
we'd like to.
Yeah.
Okay,
because you still have to appoint your own.
I think what he's saying is he's not saying they won't do the minutes, that's not
I
what he's
didn't
saying.
say you weren't, you refused to.
Yeah.
I just meant that you weren't going to be doing it going forward. I'm just wondering if we need to discuss that as something we need to handle. But if we keep it just as is, we can do that. I just want to know what to expect. So, okay.
well, so what are your thoughts on that? I mean, personally, I have done minutes lots of times. I have participated in condo association meetings and taken minutes, but I was not a person who was regularly called upon to speak, so I was there, I knew about everything that was going on, I attended every meeting, but I wasn't somebody who was facilitating the meeting or had big parts to play in the meeting. Occasionally, they would ask me a question and I would be able to answer. So it's hard. And so the flip side is now I take minutes for scan, and I am having a hard time listening to the conversation and jotting down the notes that need to be jotted down and being ready to participate in the actual voting and decision making. So it's kind of hard to do both of those things, to actively participate in the meeting and take notes. That's my thinking, but has anyone else had experience with this?
I actually have not had any experience with taking minutes. I would have no idea, because I'm always surprised at how brief they are. They don't go into anything about what, what people were concerned about, or any of the ideas that we come up with that we talk about in here that never go anywhere. So I'm not gonna know how to do that, but if somebody wants to talk to me about it.
Well, the one thing I was gonna say, and this goes back to if it's helpful to you all. There are times, not this time of year in my life, but there are times and other times of the year where you're in a conversation and you just track what's happening. Is it helpful if we send sporadic notes to you like that? Is that helpful, or is it better if you get somebody from the design person who's getting information? Because would it help if somebody gave you other filler for what you're doing, or is that not helpful? That's more the question.
It's basically, the minutes isn't a verbatim. It's just supposed to record what the motions are and the voice votes and the votes that roll votes. That's the only thing, basically, according to Robert's rules,
But that we
the minutes are. If they want it verbatim and they want to do it that way, then just like Charlottesville have to get a service to do it.
I don't think it needs to be verbatim. I'm just surprised at how brief.
Yeah.
But I mean, if no one's using them for anything and they seem like not very helpful, I mean, that's another thing to consider.
I think they, the whole reason is because the meetings are online. So they can be listened to at any time.
Yeah, well, if they're not 3 hours long or 2 hours long.
Yeah.
But I mean, we're required by law to maintain minutes, right?
Right.
Okay, so we are required to do it, and there's different ways of doing it. The most important thing is to get the vote down. But I'm accustomed to a little more detail than that, like some, maybe not all the talking points, because that's not always necessary. What's most necessary are the details of the vote, and as long as that's in there, but yeah, nice, to have a little more information.
I don't trust myself to do minutes for this group. I'm not gonna be able to do that. I just think that my plate is full. And, I'm glad to volunteer my time.
I don't think that I'm gonna be a good candidate for that. I hate to be brutal.
Where I work, we have to do minutes for every meeting. And someone random in the meeting always types up whatever's being discussed as it goes and sends it out right after the meeting, and then the people can say, oh, actually, this is an error, and it's just highlights. It's not that hard, especially since the meetings are recorded. So,
Dan, are you gonna do the minutes?
No,
That's 3 out of 4 no's.
like I said, I'm happy to give some information, but I myself, I mean, read my own stuff. So anyways, coming back to maybe where we are, we're saying, well, we can report back to the town council, planning commission would like to have staff. Oh,
Yeah, a couple of meetings ago, I did take some notes and send out a recap after the meeting, just kind of bullet points of who was going to, it was supposed to be action items, like what's our follow-up and who's gonna do what. So that was me taking notes during the meeting and sending it out. But I don't think that would be enough. And I am underwater right now, so I definitely can't take on it more. Yeah, if staff could continue doing that, it would be very appreciated. And what I've done with Scan is I've had my laptop and I've literally been typing it up there. So you've got half the text already written, then maybe you just need to go through and do some backfill after the meeting when you can put a couple more sentences together. The other thing I've done is taking good notes on paper and then dictating it in Google Voice. Because it takes pretty good dictation, so if you could formulate a sentence and just read it out loud, the typing is done for you, and usually pretty accurate, but again, you want to go back and check on it. Okay,
Is there any other actions by town council?
budget.
And those are the big things, I would say, those two.
Okay. So back to the budget, yeah, it would be nice if we could have some money for training. I don't know what that would look like. I mean, I think in the past we did $1,000, so.
Yeah, but I don't know how much thought was put into that charitably. I'll look up a seminar and think about 5 times 5. 30.
Yeah, because I don't think everyone's gonna want to, if we can't take minutes, how many meetings and trainings do we expect to go to? But I mean, I guess it's a 2-hour training, so maybe. I also wonder why that 16,000 was on our line item, but I'll check my email. Because if it's, like, we don't have sidewalks on planning commissions, but so I'm not sure why, like, an engineer's report or consulting, maybe consulting if it was directly for us. But I'll take a look at your email and hash that out a little. What else do we?
I think that, I mean, if I talk about budget, or I don't know if we need to go to the town council meetings and talk about it there, but I think it's so excited to not have anybody doing grant writing for the town. Like, you invest 10,000, but potentially make much more than that back as profit. So I just think that that really confuses me. I mean, I feel like it's not guaranteed money. It's not like a set thing that you could rely or should rely on, and your only, source of revenue for an account. But every town goes after grants, and every, like, I feel like that's something that we should be doing.
I agree.
And, I feel like the return on investment.
I agree with you.
Thanks, Yeah, I mean, I feel like that it would more than compensate for the money that we put forward.
Well, and, you know, if we have the right person who wants to do like a part-time grant writing job,
Yeah.
you know, letting them know that they're, you know, that that's kind of their base that they
Right.
need to go after.
There's so much, yeah, there's so much money out there for small rural areas. Like, I can't believe that the council would slash that. Especially around here, the community foundation. I mean, all of the potential for fundraising when we're struggling with money just seems ignorant to me.
Well, and I think there could be some grants out there that would get us an extra staff person
Right.
in the office, because it's been a struggle with two for as long as I've been on the commission. And I think that, you know, I've always said, get an intern in here who can learn on the job and get some stuff done and do some things. So that's gonna be going out there and finding who has interns that would want to work in this program, so on and so forth. And I think there's plenty of that kind of resource at UVA, and could be elsewhere as well. So if, you know, the staff is not able to get to everything, then there's still that need for some extra support. And, I think a part-time grant writer and maybe a floater for those kinds of things could really make a difference.
I do too, and I don't, you know, I don't know everything that's going on with the police and this community, but like, why are we focusing so much on beating up the police? Like, this doesn't feel like an unsafe community to live in, like, I don't know. That seems like we would be spending extra money to do that, but not putting it forth any money towards getting somebody who could get us even more money. Like, that doesn't make sense.
This has long been a concern of mine too, because the county is supposed to be paying for the police and emergency services.
Right.
And I feel like I'm just saying the same thing over and over again. So, yeah, I mean, it's the biggest line item on our budget. And I appreciate safety, but we don't have a property tax. We have, I mean, you just have to look at the budget to see that it's not sustainable, and we don't have sidewalks, we don't have the infrastructure. So and we could talk about this when Lincoln comes up to bat, because we're building that into the comp plan, right? That conversation with the county.
Definitely. I could also add regarding the planning commission budget, VCU typically has some really nice programs for planning commissioners.
Yeah.
And it might not even cost the county any money. The opportunities for that.
Really?
And they give homework too.
Oh, that's just what we need.
But VCU, it's also not very far away, it's a little bit over an hour, but it's done in person and remote over several weeks.
Yeah.
It could be really informative to kind of bring new ideas.
I think it costs $500 last time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but the town paid.
But I mean, there might even be grants too, because this is all about helping small communities boost their capacities.
Oh, we had a grant, right?
I mean,
Oh, no.
anyway,
Well,
I don't want to belabor the point, but
Well, and,
No,
you know,
I think we should talk about it.
well, you raise good questions. Is this the forum for that, or should we be going into, should we be coming up with ideas and giving them to our liaison to bring back, or should we be going to the town council meeting?
I think we should be going to the meetings because we have come up with some pretty damn good ideas over the time, and none of them have been communicated to the town council. So I don't know what to do about that. Unless we go ourselves and give a presentation, or even just voice our opinions about it. I don't know how else it gets followed up on, you know.
Your input,
We don't have a mechanism for that.
your input was included in multiple staff reports and included in budget scenarios. Maybe it wasn't weighed as much as you guys have expressed now, but I received input from everyone involved in staff or appointees. And then made sure to be thorough about sharing that out with town council. I think more than has been done in a while, but it's an advantage of a small town where you can read into stuff like that.
What is your expectation that there would be any kind of feedback about that? I mean, it's just given as a food for thought kind of thing.
Here, just to say what are the things.
It just happened kind of thing.
Well, one of the things he did is he consulted all the different commissions and boards and brought together what people recommended, what people wanted, and so when we were looking at the overall budget as a town council, people had opinions as to we're gonna do this or not do that. I mean, there's 6 different people, everybody has different opinions as to what. I was trying to simply share with you where we are as a group, so to speak, and from that, where we are now, I think the best thing, if you want to express your thoughts, I can say the council, I mean, the planning commission said this, but it's the best thing to do is to talk with the council.
Okay.
There's been lengthy discussions about the budget, so it's been a long process.
I mean, our budget, any business, the most difficult financial year, like has been the last year. My company for 30 years. So, I mean, that's where we are as a town too. It's nothing. It's a very difficult year for the town. So it's not a bells and whistles here, so to speak. That's just the reality of where we are. And then the question of there was talk about should we do a property tax, and the general feel for that was this is not the year to do that. We're fairly deep into the budget, but
Dan, can we compromise and maybe you recommend that we at least send someone that's already a staffer to a training on grant writing? Instead of, if we're not going to get a grant writer, send Melody or Javier to some training.
sure. I mean, that's one of the things
They have the bandwidth for that?
so this comes down to the question going back to town council is what role should they have in grant writing? That's a town council. We haven't talked about that in terms of, do we expect Javier to do 20% of his time that way? I mean, everybody who's been a town administrator, it's been there's grant writing is part of it, that is.
Yeah.
It's just a percentage of, you're kind of still finding, your place, so to speak, and you're also trying to find what's the clarity of the council on what you should do or what she should do.
Mhm.
So-
Yes.
So Liz, in answer to your question, yes, but there's not definitive direction. I think that's another thing Javier would say. There's not definitive direction from this council. It's not the same kind of council you and I were on before.
I know. I'm sorry.
Huh.
So tell us again what the time frame is, when is public input requested and
So we'll have a work session second Monday, 11th, 13th.
This comes week.
What day is it? 6th?
6, yeah.
And I'll try to present I got direction on a balanced budget, from our last special session. So we could call a public hearing during the May regular session, then have a public hearing, June, 3rd Monday of June. I think any of those meetings, even before the public hearing, an opportunity to express, input into this year's budget.
and certainly something in email that could be read.
Absolutely, yeah,
So the work session is next Monday,
yes.
and public are allowed to go to that and speak?
They're allowed to, observe. There would be, but the formal public hearing for the budget is not until June.
Okay.
because you have to call a public hearing.
So
But
the
of course,
follow-
there's a forum,
Following meeting, is that the regular meeting, the 20th?
and there's a public forum.
That's public.
But you could also, I mean, you could write a lengthy email to the town council, you could
Yeah, and
say,
And I think as commissioners, yeah, that's more than reasonable.
yeah.
I guess before I write a lengthy email, I wanna know like,
Do you want me to forward where we left off?
yeah, I mean, it would be nice to know, to your point, Lisa, about, you know, Albemarle County is supposed to be helping to pay for emergency services and things like that. Like, why does more than half of our budget
because
go?
the town has decided in the past that it wants to have a police department. And there's gonna be a huge outcry if, you know, people make any effort to get rid of that and understandably, but.
Sure, but why are we beefing it up?
We're not beefing it, I mean,
Okay.
there's not, we're just maintaining.
Well,
Okay.
yeah, and there's multiple vehicles, but how many people are there now versus? So is that because we're a town? Well, as to why they don't pay for the emergency services? Because the property taxes cover that. So our property taxes go to the county, we pay for county services, the county's supposed to be covering us in town. But
They work.
there are a lot of caveats to that. Well, being where we're located, you know, we're at the outer edge of the county, so it shouldn't matter. But we have a large population, so we in theory need more services and people felt that we weren't getting adequate services in the past. When did we get police department? Ages ago.
Before.
Yeah. Mhm.
I don't know, I will say that in my 13 years on the council, the last couple of years are the best policing we've had. It's also,
Absolutely.
but the other difficulty you have is nationally, there's a dramatic decrease in, like, there's massive openings, police, like everywhere across the country, locally too. It's a supply and demand, so to have decent policing, it's, that's, the pay is higher.
Well, then all the town stuff kind of goes to. I don't know another word besides. Well.
Well, the one thing I will say though, if you follow the stuff, if you follow the kind of stuff that they're dealing with in terms of policing, it's serious stuff. It's not, it's,
That's why I wanted to know before I read it.
Yeah, the stuff, I mean, it's not just that they're pulling and, you know, somebody over, they're dealing with about anything you can think of, sadly. They're dealing.
Well,
Okay.
and mutual aid, so we're servicing the county and Fluvanna and perhaps even Buckingham.
Yeah, well, that's right, and the same thing, they're servicing us.
Right. Right, there's mutual aid agreements. I mean, there's without a doubt, the standard of policing and our police has improved dramatically over the years, and we're paying for it, and, you know, people in general. And this is a personal opinion, people in general have higher demands and expectations now for all sorts of things than in the past. I imagine that the things that are crossing your desk now are a lot more than whatever you might have had 5 and 10 years ago. So, and you're right, you're paying for all that stuff, you're paying for all of that. The more we want and demand, the more we're paying for it. Because we're paying a lot of property taxes, I know that much, and it keeps going up. Right. And I don't have a problem with the local property tax if it's gonna go to the things that we need for the town, but. You know, I don't know what Elmo's doing with our property taxes.
Right. Well, maybe if we don't have such a high demand for the budget planning commission, we could use some of that. I don't know.
Well, it's gotta come from somewhere.
Right, that's what I'm
yeah,
saying,
it
like,
does.
if we don't have, if we had a line item in the budget of, what was it?
1,000.
Oh,
Well, no, right now it's 1,000 in the proposed budget. What was the 16,000? That's like pass-through stuff that came from grants and it was probably engineer
2-3
reports and
years.
stuff.
2-3 years ago.
Yeah,
Say, we could take some of that 16,000 and push it once.
That, you never saw any of that.
Yeah, that's probably meant.
Well, that was what was actually spent in the past on, oh, I got you, things, various.
It was a heyday. All right.
All right, so I think so two things, as a planning commission, we should come up with our needs, which would be a small budget for training. And whatever we need to be effective planning commissioners. But then, as individuals and taxpayers and citizens of the town, we should reach out to town council with suggestions. And whatever needs to be put in the comp plan, that's in our purview as planning commissioners, which we have the capital budget. We did give suggestions on that, so that's all in there, right? In the budget request.
Can you repeat that?
The capital plan that we talked about.
Yeah, so recommendation has been to approve capital plans separate from the comprehensive plans. We discussed this as a commission, correct? So at first we discussed the CIP plan as being included in the comprehensive plan. Recommendation from council and best practices would be to separate it and then have the comprehensive plan refer to it. And you hope that the priorities we have in the comprehensive plan start, flow down and get recommended the capital improvement plan.
Okay, so
I
then,
shared.
that makes sense, I remember that, but then does that mean that we don't have any capital items in the budget plan for the next year? Or did anyone decide on what those priorities might be for the next year?
It's been a point of contention on which priorities out of the CIP. I shared them the month following us having discussion, maybe February, March, off the top of my head. I haven't been able to follow back up with council thoroughly about a CIP plan because we've been heavily dedicated into wrapping up this fiscal year and then trying to get the next fiscal year. I think to your point, it is fruitful to think 5 years out, and the capital plan that Lincoln put together is very best practices. It's not going to get lost on me, but yeah.
Well, is money being set aside at least, like to a line item?
Mostly this year has been capital projects for our local parks. A capital project for a potential grant for the police department for a cone trailer, which would help out with our parks also. But we haven't been able to broach yet those bigger items on the CIP as part of our priorities for our budget.
Well, and that might be a decision for another time, but knowing that a certain dollar amount is getting put into a capital line item.
We're really working with our financial policy, which is to attempt to have at least a 5% capital improvement plan, which is part of our guidelines.
Okay.
So I have to stick within that, but the concern is prioritizing.
Okay, well, 5%, that's what I wanted to hear. It makes me feel good. And the priorities, we can talk about those later. That's probably not the pressing thing. Did we get any input in that, or?
You're still part of our process is having planning commission recommend out a CIP. I didn't get a lot of consensus from council yet, despite me seeing it as a best practice or as a good practice.
When it was brought up to council and we talked about it, I don't think it was received very well. Maybe it's the simple
Yes.
way of saying it. I think it's a good, I think that's one of the nice things about this particular comprehensive plan is that we have this, but it's not, I think where the difficulty is that there's not agreement. We've come to a time of great disagreement as council. And this, in a sense, is saying, this is what we found from the community. And people have varying views as to whether they believe that or not, so to speak, if that makes sense. So in other words, it might be nice that we say that it's that way, but some people might not want to see it that way, or it gets into the, it already pushes political politics. It doesn't matter where you fall on it. It's so the strength of it is this comes from how much research, right? All the surveys and everything we've done and all the community meetings, trying to put it all together. At the same time, it's the buck stops at the town council. We need to more grapple with it, and I don't, like I said, I don't think it was overly received with excitement.
I think there's always a worthwhile conversation about thinking far into the future. And we've been doing that in this commission with our comprehensive plan, not only 5 years, but 20 years out.
Can we have this conversation next month? Can we put it on the agenda for next month to talk more about the capital improvement plan and make suggestions to council? Because Lincoln, did you built that out, right? You created that
Yes,
idea.
cascading effect. So it basically shows that if you don't invest a certain amount of money every year, it's not. And there are other big ticket items that might be necessary across areas of town development, such as intersections. Of course, there could be proffers or something brought into the picture, but I think those have to be on the radar.
You know what I'm gonna say about that, right? I think the county needs to pay for that. I mean, we don't have a budget to pay for roads and intersections and that's not within our. I mean,
I think the best case is raises awareness. That's something other avenues have to be pursued, of course.
yes,
And
and
it's obvious the money is just not there.
it's not there.
Do you figure this town council is not interested in this sort of improvements or? I don't know.
What I would say would be, this is, I think, I'm trying to think of the right word, is it prescriptive, so to speak? So this is for directional, the information from this, and that direction is coming, and the decision structure that we have, I mean, people have their opinions, so to speak, so it's to be overly fair, like I'm trying to go off the reporter here. People will hear some of this information and be willing to think of it, others will think that pretty much I don't really care about that. I'm just, different people will respond differently to it. And I think the process, some of it depends on what you think of what our public service is. In other words, is me serving as a town, I'm just using hypothetical. Is it about getting what I want, or is it about getting what I think the consensus of the town is? So what we're trying to do from this project is find what the consensus of the town is, you know, what is the best, and we're trying to move that forward.
I'm just wondering if the thinking is just to get by every year, or is it to invest in the future?
Well, I'll say this, we're in a time period where we're thankful just to survive. I will say that, I mean, having been on the council for a long time period, thankfully, that's not what most of the years were. But where we've been the last 2 or 3 or 4 years, we're trying to survive. I think you could probably say to a town council, they would, wherever they fall, they probably would to some levels. They might say it differently than I would say, but recognize we're in a difficult position. Wouldn't you think that's true?
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So a lot of this is kind of moot at this point.
It might be moot in one sense that, you know, I want to get a new car when I can, or a better car when I can. We know when to get it, and it's real. On the other hand, we might be pushing the ball on to the moment to get through, so I can get through the inspection. But it's valid. Again, I will say, again, being a town councilor, we haven't had this approach before. And because and everybody can have different thoughts of the way my own operation is, but this is the way I try to think. I try to think what is best for the town. I don't try to think what's best for Dan. And so what's this, I would even say, I would rather the new gas station not be next to my house, but I approved it through the whole process because I think it's good for the town. It destroys my life, and another one destroys my life world.
Oh, but you got that.
All
but at the same time, my point is to say. It's about, like, so coming back to this, like, how do we as a consensus do what's good for the town? What's good for the towns, we have to think long-term, we have to think about these other issues, we have to think of structures, and I have to be, I mean, we individuals, we're gonna have to make choices to be incongruous or to go to others. But that's just how you work together.
And I think this is a good tool that I don't think is gonna fall off my radar naturally from what I'm hearing from you guys. It's something you would continue to like to discuss, as a planning commission, so
well, I appreciate you saying yes. That's great.
it's forward thinking.
Because we're going to have a role in all of those most of those things going forward, so we know what the priorities are from our conversations with the community.
Okay. After all of Lincoln's work, I hope it isn't completely slashed at the end.
The presentation.
But I just thought the presentation, whenever you're.
Let's say,
Okay, any matters from the public? Thank you for that.
And that's the, let me check online. We do not have any members on.
Okay. All right, Lincoln, you're up, and thank you for all that work you've been doing. You've sent us a bunch of emails over the last month and today, so thank you.
Okay, so from our last scheduled meeting, I think the meeting was canceled. I basically brought those slides back, and I suggest we quickly go through the first 5 items. Then we'll talk about the population projection, which we've been emailing about. And I have 2 sections of text to talk about, and then the schedule most important. Okay. So first recap is the meeting we had with Fluvanna. Basically, Ms. Knott, Javier, and I were there. We were 2 staff members from Fluvanna. It was the assistant county administrator, who was the acting planning director, and also their GIS specialist. So basically, we briefed them on our comp plan, and then they informed us that their comp plan, they had their director meeting, and basically they're foregoing the update of the comp plan, and they're just going back to the previous comp plan and making some minor revisions. And I just saw that they hired a new planning director from another county. He has originally a journalism background, but he was working in a planning position more recently at another county. Can't remember where that was, but don't think you met him yet.
No, and I got an update from previously the acting planning director, but now the assistant county, and they're looking at about a year for the process now with their new planning director. That are complete comprehensive plan.
So then we consulted them on the urban development area, rephrased as community planning area, and they have no objection. And any indication on their existing comp plan of a community planning area over Scottsville is a drafting error. So they will double check that in their document. Okay, so the technical matters we discussed, accuracy of the Scottsville town boundary on Fluvanna County GIS. I'll just skip forward to the next slide here. You can see there's a gap between the Albemarle County line and this Fluvanna line here. You can't see my cursor, but basically that's also GIS representation there. The boundary between the 2 counties hasn't changed for hundreds of years. So they're willing to kind of just delete this additional line to avoid confusion. Okay.
Isn't it common though that stuff online, it's a lot of it's small, isn't it?
Well, it's something to do with technically with GIS, because GIS has different ways of showing the curvature of the earth.
Right.
Yeah, so it's quite complex. So it's not technically wrong per se in either system, but it's just how it overlays. So they're just gonna remove one line, because it's just for representation purposes.
Representation's the big word there.
Yeah. But the boundary was resurveyed, they informed us, in 1994 during the Scottsville area extension. And like this says, parameters of that boundary have been agreed for centuries. So basically, also we talked about this Fluvanna zoning in existing Scottsville lots. They're going to look into that. As you might remember, some of these lots in the middle of Scottsville are zone business 1, but in Scottsville zoning, they're residential. So they're going to look into that. And it might take some time because they have new planning director, of course. He's catching up. Okay, so Albemarle County Service Authority Utilities in Fluvanna, they were unaware of that. So basically, we highlighted something new to them. That, you know, Mr. Quick's lot, when he went up to the SGP, we discovered that that's serviced, even though it's on the Fluvanna side, serviced by Albemarle County Services. And they would add that to their GIS for future reference. Okay, looking at 4D, slope soil erosion. Basically, they directed us to talk to their staff, Roger, so we can align the town's ordinances with what's happening in Albemarle County. As you might remember, we talked to Albemarle County, and they also have a responsible staff. So we'll try to compare the two, because we're, of course, the only jurisdiction that have to worry about both. And then also on E, control burn, so on and so forth. And that's a similar item we need to talk to Roger about. Okay, so again, these are just things from the GIS that we found. Okay, other things, you know, they're excited to coordinate periodically with Scottsville. They really have positive comments on the Scottsville's principles and goals approach to leading. They want to incorporate that in their next comp plan. And then they said there's an opportunity for the town to discuss property tax with Fluvanna County for those few lots, right, Javier? Yeah. So there might be a little bit of financial gain from that small Fluvanna property tax for those few lots. And then Fort Union grant model is worth considering. Basically, Fluvanna got a little bit of money from Fort Union to do some planning work regarding their small business development. So that's something that could be, you know, directed towards a grant writer. Okay, so continuing on, the public use maps. Thank you, Mr. Pritzker, once again for your good suggestion. So I reached out to the Albemarle County GIS folks, and basically they highlighted that there's 2 types of information on these maps. There's the point information, and then there's the geometries, okay, the shapes. So for instance, here on this slide, you cannot see the shape of Scottsville Lake, right? And then on the next slide, you can see there's a point for Scottsville administration, which isn't really, in my mind, a good description of what this building does. It's more like town hall, so on and so forth. Yeah. So these things can all be amended. Basically, the county will eventually be able to help us with geometries, but anyone can actually go in and suggest the change of a point from administration to town office, for instance. So on the slide I shared last month, I came up with a brief list of things that could, be updated really easily. The town could just build upon this, and for the geometries, these could just be emailed to the Albemarle County GIS and they'll help. And for the points, anyone could do it. They just have to be approved by Google using some process. So for that, I'll just leave that there. Photos. So one of the tasks was to go through the town photo archive. So I went through the old hard drives, old computers, and such, and collected a lot of photographs in this. Some of them were from Scan. I think Mr. Lawless just collected them from a lot of different places. And then I gathered all those folders, and then I've shared the ones that I've taken that I found quite useful. This is town council work session with Ms. Don Price, for instance. This is the strategic plan discussion of the library. I love the baby in the corner too. And this is a work session, discussing, I can't remember, I think it was growth Yeah, I love the flowers from the Saturday morning market. My daughter here, banging the gavel. This is a key engagement here. We have the Scottsville, Boys and Girls Club, James River Club, here learning about the flood levels. This was really informative. Mr. Gritzko, talking to the teens, they might have been voting on their favorite chicken restaurant to bring to Scottsville, but they had a lot of great ideas. And then we have the third graders from Scottsville Elementary. Yeah, hopefully this is a yearly event, and then there's the mayor sharing about his role. And then once again, the tutor led by Dan. So those were great engagement sessions. Question was raised about what other photos would be useful, and I think any photos that could be had about the 4th of July or the Bateau Festival. I know Mala, you're a photographer. Okay. And I saw a few in the folder from you, but I know there you probably have many others. Just, broad shots that show the liveliness of the town, special events, something that I think would be really useful.
I had shared some with the chamber. And I think that that's just because they asked me to, so, I will get some together.
Awesome, okay, thank you. So I also entered these photographs in the UVA Car Center photojournalism competition. I was a finalist. It was the prompt was, what does democracy look like to you? And I wrote a prompt about local governance, so included all these engagement photographs. But a gentleman that was a much better photographer than me and had a fancier camera, definitely. He went to Washington, D.C., and he took a lot of amazing photographs of, protests from around the world regarding Ukraine and other places. He was a good photographer.
But your concept was spot on.
Yeah, local government stuff.
Well, have you ever seen Sanjay's suit checks?
Oh, he organized the competition.
Oh, did he?
So this photograph was actually
Yeah,
shown in
he's
the
he's
rotunda.
working for the Democracy Initiative now, right?
Yeah, so he brought in about 4 or 5 photojournalists from around the world, Washington Post, so
That's cool.
we had lunch. with
Yeah.
them. That was nice.
He's working with the big guns now.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a great photographer. He used to be a UVA photographer. He was like their lead photographer. And then he started doing work with the statues that were coming down. He took a lot of really iconic photos from that. He's got a lot of projects out there, but he's pretty amazing.
And he also shoots for a Dave Matthews Band.
Yeah. Follow him on Instagram. He has a lot of really great stuff.
So further to last month, basically there was a request to kind of keep talking about the CIP a little bit. So I did bring up these examples. So Charlottesville was having public hearings for their CIP, so there's a link there for that story. Albemarle County has an interactive website for their CIP, and then Fluvanna County has their CIP listed there too. So also, I take there's a weekly email from the community engagement guys, Sean Hubbs, if you're familiar, and he emails around a lot of information, and this information was about the affordable housing budget for Charlottesville. And I calculated out of their $8.9 million budget for affordable housing, that's $196 per resident. And if Scottsdale used that same amount per resident, you take 196 times 524, you need to dedicate $102,000 to affordable housing. Just housing, not sidewalks, not intersections, not staff, just housing. So that's a big wake-up call. It doesn't seem feasible for a town such as Scottsville, right? So it's just a different league. Yeah, but I thought this was a comparison worthwhile to just make. Further to the sidewalks, this is Timmons Group plan that was from I believe it was 2018, yeah, and this is the the matching grant that wasn't able to go through, yes.
There's an element of that, yeah.
So basically, I analyzed it, if it was even feasible to break it into 5 different areas, these are really small pieces. But if you had a local contractor that's willing to do small pieces like this, maybe it would be possible to take this as a piecemeal approach rather than a $1 million project. So that's just trying to think out of the box and not tackling something at $1 million at a time. But again, when projects are taken in small increments, they're less efficient. You know, it's more contracting, more staff time, so those are all weighing factors. Okay, so parcel data, I just got an email from the James Exchange earlier this afternoon that they are still working on collecting this data. So they did send me some interim data today, but it should be coming soon.
It's like 17.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Probably tax, if you know.
Yeah.
Probably from,
Churches,
Yeah.
cemeteries.
what is it, like seniors?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so further to the population projection, just wanted to highlight that the text in the existing comp plan, the goal was perhaps to around 1,000 persons by 2040. And whenever I talk to someone about the previous comp plan, I do remember they really pick up this sentence. So it is important what the population projection is. Then I went back to 2013, and the goal then was between 800 and 1,000 persons. And of course, this was probably carefully wordsmithed by previous planning commissions. Okay, so what I've done about a month ago, I sat down for almost a day, and I tackled about half of the planning parameters chapter. So this is all the data that the planning is based on. It's the population, it's the jobs, so on and so forth. So I got about halfway through. And it includes this table that is population projection by jurisdiction, 1950 to 2020. I actually was only to 2010, and then there's a projection for 2018, I think. So as you probably know, the US Census is decennial, so it comes out every 10 years. But for some reason, some of the more recent figures were not accurate on this chart. And that might be because the census comes out with several revisions. It takes them a while to actually finalize the data. So perhaps when the comp plan was updated a while ago, the not so final data was used. You know what I mean? So I went through all these figures and double checked them with some official numbers that were finalized. Okay. So 524 is where we're at.
Do we have any data that breaks that down into like age or,
Yep.
voting eligibility and all that kind of stuff?
I've created some charts to show about, for instance, race ethnicity, which is pretty interesting. At Scottsville, you can see based on statistics, it's becoming more diverse.
Yeah.
So on so forth. I can show that to you when we go through the document.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Also, I did find an error in the census data itself. 2 different sources conflict. If you look at year 2000, 596 is the population. And this is after Scottsville extended its boundaries, of course. But, I was looking at 2 different census documents. One is a PDF of an old book, and then the second is the online version. So that's just interesting. Somehow I think the census made a snafu when they added a few Havana County members together with Albemarle County members to equal Scottsville. So interesting. Okay, so basically, these were the numbers I shared for the April 1st meeting, and this was just to put some numbers on the table for the projection of population. Okay, so if you look at the 2020 line, we were 524 for the total town, that's including both counties. Albemarle had 112,000, Havana 27, and Buckingham 16, and Virginia had 8.6 million. So then using the Weldon Cooper projections as of 2022, Albemarle County will increase, they project 10.34%. Fluvanna will only increase 4.2%, okay? So what I did, just to put numbers on the table, I took an average of the growth of Albemarle County and Fluvanna County. And then that's 7.27%, okay? So I just want to quickly share, thank you for one of the commissioners providing some reference information. So this is from Weldon Cooper Center, and this is from 2000 to 2010. So you can see back then Albemarle County was going to grow 10% or more. Okay, so this is the updated information directly from the Weldon Cooper website, they have a data portal. And you can see here at the bottom, Albemarle County is second from the bottom here. So right here, so this is what they're projected to grow to here to 2050.
Can are we allowed, can we ask questions?
Go for it.
Okay, thanks. When, do we know when the houses, over by the tire factory are supposed to be done? Is there a projection?
In our projections.
Well, I mean, I think it's safe to say they should be done by and occupied by 2030.
Oh,
Yeah, so
I was okay with putting it in
if
that.
they were done by 2030 and there's 30 houses,
36.
36 times 2.5 people.
Yeah, that was my thinking, that was my math in the
17.
email.
So here's someone's email, to focus at 590 or closer to 600. So I think this is all, really reasonable. So what I did, I have two updated options. Here is, updating the numbers just following Albemarle County's growth. Okay, so that's 578. And then, the next option is, just pegging that, just at 600. And then following Albemarle County growth after that. So that'd be 670 and 750.
It's like, it's hard to follow Albemarle County group when we know they're growing and building houses and we're not. So 600 is reasonable, but the growth beyond that assumes that there's new construction, which we don't have any guarantee of. We're expecting that East Village probably, but
Yeah, what's going on with that?
East Village, they're going through their easement processes, so it's definitely reasonable to say they'll be done by 2030, but it's still a few years out as they slowly go through.
so they're planning to build it.
Oh, East Village or
East
Birch?
Village.
Oh, East Village, about a month ago, I'm sending emails to you guys too. About a month ago, two council members, Eileen Morse and Allison Betsett, spoke with town council about having conversations with the developer about East Village. They'll probably report back in about a week about it. So maybe that's an opportunity for conversation, but we haven't heard back from the rest of the council.
I'm excited to hear that Alex is getting involved in these conversations. That's awesome.
Yeah, so that's maybe a week and a half ago that I heard they were meeting, so there'll probably be something next month we'll be able to report back to you guys.
Yeah, there's just nothing in. So, like, I'm on Zillow and Realtor constantly,
Mhm.
like everything around us, like pops up with new construction or at least old construction that's for sale, and like 3 houses and stuff on fire.
Old houses that are 80 years old, 100 years old.
One of the things I will say is that's different about where we are than we were maybe 10 years ago is we have a very interested developer at the moment. We didn't have a developer before that wanted to do something. We have a developer that's ready to do something. The question is, as a town, as we communicate, in the future, what will that look like? Well, like, what does the town want? And there's great diversity of views as to what that will look like, whether the density is what we're projecting in terms of a by right perspective, or whether there's special use discussions, and that's clearly, you know, obviously it's an area of the town, we had a great disagreement a couple of years ago, and it remains to be seen what we'll do in the future. The difference is, there's a developer that is saying they're in for the long haul, so to speak, so whether it's, so if that's true.
Well, if Mink Creek is any indication, it doesn't really seem like it. Because aren't they all approved and ready to go?
You're talking about the 36 houses?
No, I'm just talking about this old SUP that was,
That subdivision
Oh,
needs to be.
yeah.
established.
Oh, no, the stuff that's moving forward rather quickly is 36 houses. That's
no, I'm saying if Mink Creek is any indication, it doesn't seem like they're using the most of what they have. I mean, I haven't seen anything happen.
If I were them, I would wait long before I would, that's a very valuable land, it's not, I mean, in other words, to do what they do. We have to have a reasonable conversation with the town, we have not. We
So
were,
you're saying because we didn't go forward with the factory that nothing else is
Well,
gonna go forward?
well, what I'm saying is, so if you look at, so we had 3 different conversations at the time, there was well, actually 4, there was the parkland, then there was the 36 houses, then there was the apartments, and then there was East. East was the quickest one to die. So of the so that it kind of, I would say that's the area that's the most dicey of the group, much more than the factory in terms of how I would say it as a town councilor. So up there, it's we didn't talk about it, it died quickly. In other words, it was one of the opportunities we had as a town, both Bird and East, and the East died first.
Well, East died because they didn't include the other lands in their proposal. They didn't have a suggestion for what they wanted to do with the other lands. So they said, okay, fair enough, we'll come back to you and.
We have all these things take time, but I'm not seeing that we have a partner who's eager to get started.
I think they want to do something that makes the most sense for them and us, and that's where Alex and Eileen come in having those conversations that help try to make a good deal for us too. So I'm glad they're not moving forward. I want us to have more conversations.
They need to just ask.
I would agree that the population projection is about communication. Also about what the town is looking for.
I mean, yeah, I mean, at some point, we can only expand so much, because we're a small town, and we wouldn't stay a small town, but it seems like we're on the decline again in numbers. From, you know, if you look at the chart from 1950 all the way up till now, we're heading back down again, which is great.
Okay, so option B is based upon the development and then in 2040 following Albemarle County.
Correct.
All right, so the question is, which ones do we think makes the most sense to include? Yeah, I'm just remembering that other statement about older populations tend to have smaller family sizes, and as that population's getting older, because you included age. You did include something in the email about ages. So we have a significantly older than average population in Scottsville right now, and as that population ages out, if you're downsizing, moving in with family, passing on, they'll be replaced presumably by families.
Yeah, you can see, generally speaking, this is year 2000, 2010, 2020. You can see small retirees, generally speaking. And less younger people. Yeah. Wow. Then talking about ethnicity and race, here we have white, not Hispanic. The numbers of those residents is decreasing. Black or African American is increasing, Hispanic or Latino is increasing a lot. Then 2 or more races is increasing, and others is also increasing. Scottsville is becoming more diverse. To answer your question. And these categories are based on this, how the census classifies different individuals there. Okay, so this, all redrafted text, really heavy stuff. But, there's also education in here, so I did the first half of this, I still need to do a little more about economy. Some of this might not be available anymore to a granularity that was previously. So on and so forth, tourism, yeah. So that's in yellow, but everything above that, like I said, education, ethnicity, population by race, age, so on and so forth. 22.2% of residents are 65 or older. Yeah, compared to 16.8 for all of Virginia. So here are the growth projections. I'll copy in whatever your final decision is. And then population over time since 1950 is also here. Yeah. And this is, like I said, the section that deals with planning assumptions. Also, for instance, the tire factory was referred to throughout the comp plan as 61 acres. But once you subtract the Bird Street, now we're down to 41.3 acres. So that was another thing we noticed.
I've been hearing people talk about rumors about a YMCA being put in down there. Is that happening with those conversations at the town level?
A few months ago, Eileen Morse during a work session suggested it as something we've heard input about, mixed use down there. That's what I heard a lot of support from the planning commission and from community members who were interested in development down there. But I wouldn't say that it's gone much further than that, as trying to kind of, I would say, almost open up the conversation again about development.
And what we're looking for and what we need and want.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
It's kind of like
The
a car wash.
conversations are happening. Well, I think it's funny that the number was 1,000 in all those other comp plans. And we just realized that is not happening. We're going in the opposite direction. So maybe let's not shoot so high. 600 would be great. 600 is done. I mean, I think that's gonna happen.
Nice to have things in your comp plan that you know will happen.
Yes.
right? Like an easy check.
Yes.
Well, for instance, the tire factory that has 205 units, and you assume 2 persons per unit, that's 410 people. That's,
There's 2,000.
there's 1,000 just there, so you just have to also calculate in your mind what's the likelihood of a tire factory or another type of development coming up. For instance, around the gas station, there's other land and the owner has voiced interest in rental units. So on and so forth, yeah. So it's definitely possible.
So then do we think that the 2040 number is too conservative? If we look at option B, because I think we're working on option B. That's what I think.
Yeah.
Do we think that the 2040 number is too conservative, or should we plan?
Well, think about the other land, for instance, let's say the town implemented a town tax. So, land would be, taxed based on its value, so developer might want to offload their land faster, so that might encourage development. Because any land that's in the town, they're gonna be paying town tax, right? If the town implements one, so property tax might encourage developer to move faster. That's one thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, and, yeah, any one of these developments we talked about, beside Bird Street, which is up and coming, would be implemented, you could easily hit 670 by 2040. I myself just don't have that runway of experience like some of the commissioners here about what have been discussions previously. Was there this optimism 10, 15 years ago? We don't have that runway.
I think you would say there was a number that was, at least this is my speculation, a number that we said 1,000 and we say, well, let's stick with 1,000. And I think what is being said on the table here is that there's a bit of a recognition of where we've come as a town. We've been losing people if you look at the census of the last 2 censuses. At the same time, there is going to be some growth because we know the houses coming in. I will say that if you go any projection in some of these other areas, you certainly would have room for more houses, but it's just a matter of how they come. Whether, so, I don't know, I think it's fine, 670 sounds fine to me.
I mean, you know, I really don't know how you would make that decision definitively.
If we keep it at or near 1,000, are we signaling with the comp plan? And I would say that we should be signaling with the comp plan that if we want to hit that number, then we need to take action to make that happen. And so maybe implementing a tax to incentivize people to sell their land or to develop their property. Like, you know, if we kept it at 1,000 or close to that, and we really said this is a comprehensive plan that we want to work toward, then I think that's telling the town, these are our goals, and we are going to implement policies to make those goals happen. Like, that's what this should be for. So if we settle at 600 and we already know we're gonna meet that, then we don't have to work anymore towards that goal.
Commissioner Strasser just doing napkin math, if you
Yeah.
take the green space, anything up and coming, then potentially you could build by right. Probably around 850, a little under that.
Right.
So to your point, if you put 1,000, you would be indicating that there would be initiative by the town.
Right,
That's something a little bit more ambitious.
right.
I'm gonna be the naysayer on this only because this is gonna sound funny to say it this way, but as much as I personally might be happy with 1,000, I think it's easy to say there's not a consensus for that.
Right, well, that's what I'm saying, like, we should pick a number that is, that we want to actually work for. So
Well,
if it's not 1,000, let's not keep it at
Well,
1,000, but maybe make it higher.
well, yeah, I think if you look at these numbers here from a consensus perspective, I mean, if we've already, if you take the minimum number and do what our chair has done already and add in the 36 houses, I think by 2040, we would factor that in to what we currently have. Maybe if you add another 50% above that in terms of, you know, another 50 people or something, making room for something happening, you probably are in the 700 range or something like that. In other words, that's not a, that seems, it doesn't seem like we're really aiming for anything, it's just kind of projecting, that's what if we see. Anyway, so for me, if I were to say 1,000 to, you know, to have the town slightly less than double, I can definitely tell you there's not a consensus for that as a town. People, if you saw what happened, there's no
Right.
consensus for that.
But it's been saying 1,000.
Right, it's not like we're.
Well, but again,
Envelope.
what this document, I'm gonna say this carefully. Most of the time, this document collects dust. What we're doing here is trying to create something that doesn't collect dust. So most of the time, this document is created and nothing much happens with it. One of the things I like about the idea of trying to make this real is so that it really doesn't collect us,
Right.
so that it actually
And
doesn't
that's
do
what I'm
what you
saying.
said
like,
before,
let's
that we,
pick a number
we actually,
that we actually think we
Right.
want to work for the town. So that it doesn't collect us. So if 1,000 is not what we want, and I would agree with you, I think there wasn't any appetite for that. Based on what, what just happened with the tire factory and even with the Bird Street houses, people didn't even want those.
I would say there's an appetite, but not consensus. Consensus is what we're talking about. In other words, what's the agreement?
I mean, really, this is just a debate on who's on town council in the future. Because that, whether we're open to contractors developing the town is gonna be who is on the town council sitting to vote in favor. So it could go either way.
That's right, that's right.
Right, but I think this is an opportunity for us as a commission to say, maybe 1,000 is too aggressive. Maybe we should bump it back to 750 or 700 or somewhere. A number approaching with what we want to see and what we think is moderate growth. Because doubling the town's population by 2040 doesn't seem super moderate to me. And it also doesn't seem realistic, just based on the housing stock and the fact that until recently, the Bird Street properties were the first development since the 1950s that have been approved in this town. The 40s. Yeah, and the only reason our town basically doubled in size around 2020 is because we swallow up more area. Like, unless we're gonna keep that as our strategy to just keep increasing the town boundaries, like that kind of growth is not something we're gonna see anytime soon. So, let's pick a realistic number and try to make this document something that doesn't collect us, and it's something that we
Well,
want to work.
I mean, I think Lincoln's proposal for option B 2040 is realistic, assuming just
Yeah.
small development. But again, to his point, if you take the tire factory and develop that, even if it's not 200 units, you're gonna, well, I guess it is.
But I don't think that was,
It's not that far off.
nothing
from
has
possibility.
changed though with that as far as the infrastructure goes. The road is the road, and it's never gonna change. So if that was the biggest gripe that people had was the amount of traffic that would be flowing through, Burton Street and right through downtown, that's never going to change. Are we ever going to get anything passed back there that would even approximate 200 or even 100 apartments? I don't see that as viable. Frankly.
Yes.
If I could add in two points, from our conversation with VDOT and Humboldt County Planning, they brought the 5 colleagues down here, which is a great turnout for them. We really appreciate them coming all the way down here. They were really receptive to us writing a letter for what the needs are. If we want them to take a special look at a certain intersection, they said, hey, we need a letter. And I think a letter can be stronger if we have good assumptions. So if you could say in that letter, hey, we are projecting to have 670 folks by 2040. This is our assumption. Blah, 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 blah. That's very strong compared to, oh, we're gonna have 1,000 people. And what's your assumption? Well, it's just 1,000. So I think putting something, backing up a number is really important.
So then make it 800. Because I'm thinking, say we were to compromise on 100 units at the tire factory, I'm just throwing out numbers, please don't anyone
Was mixed
call
use
for
in
my
that
execution.
sentence.
It absolutely should be in that sentence, I'll add that in. But as far as residents in town, if it was 100 units, mixed use, that would be great, a lot of people would be happy. Doesn't completely address the road issues, that's 200 people. Let the county know, hey, we've got, another 200 people that are gonna be living down this road, we need help with the sidewalk and roads and crosswalks. Would that get their attention?
I think what I can do is, based on the population projection that is decided, And these, basic assumptions that you just mentioned, or whatever they are, I can write a paragraph or two and explain that. For instance, different scenarios, and justify that, yes, 800 is viable.
And also, even if there wasn't housing down there, if it was commercial or if there was anything viable down there, we would need better infrastructure.
Basically, when we've gone to talk to Buckingham County, and Albemarle and Fluvanna, we've explained that there's the tire factory, a growth area potentially, there's the East Village, everything up there, growth area, and there's also the, behind the gas station, the new gas station, that growth area. So, and there could be other places that could pop up on the horizon. But those three growth areas, if any one of those were developed in the next 15 to 25 years, that would definitely potentially hit 800.
Okay. Okay,
So just I guess it's also a probability game. What's the chances of 1 out of 3?
Yeah.
Likely, I would say. The United States and Virginia has a huge housing crunch, as we all know, right? Affordability is becoming a huge concern. So there's going to be a big push politically nationwide and also by the state to develop more housing. So I think it's reasonable to project some sort of growth between 2030, 600, and then 800 by 2040.
and then maybe 12% on top of that, so 896 by 2050.
896.
Oh, sure.
I have a question. Does it matter to note folks that are like staying in Airbnbs, or when Scottsville's, campgrounds are full in the summer, or does any of that matter to any of these conversations? I don't,
Not for this.
as the newbie.
Yeah, this is the residents that fill out the census form that the federal government puts out every 10 years.
So Airbnbs that were, popping up all over Scottsville is irrelevant.
Yeah,
They wouldn't.
Okay.
So those people will be attributed to where their home residence is, whether it be Charlottesville, Washington DC, or Florida,
Got it.
and the West Coast. And again, the census is supposed to be a 1-to-1 count, but even that is not possible, right? We have unhoused populations. Some people don't fill out their forms. Underreporting, yeah. So 524, there's a likelihood, but there's always a percentage of errors that's delineated by the census.
we thought about doing 800 for 2040 and 900 for 2050. Those numbers are too round. They've not been calculated.
Put a 0.2 at the end of it.
A 4-year-old.
Alright, Alright, I'm getting punchy, I don't know about you.
Okay.
Lincoln, what else?
So 2 text documents. First, I will show you the town finances. And this got kicked off based on talking about the CIP and so on and so forth. Okay. So we have the goal of demonstrating value and fiscal well-being. And I think Lisa sent an email today that basically said that the town should work with the county, Albemarle County, to really leverage their assets, whether it be the old school or the park that they run for the town, what the town owns, so on and so forth. So I have not sent this to the entire planning commission yet, but basically this explains the town finances. And I only asked Javier to kind of fill in the blank, but the intention of this is to kind of explain where the town finances on average have been, and then how that relates to the potential CIP. Okay, so it says here, the fiscal year runs from July 1st to June 30th. As of May 2024, Scottsville is going to spend about this much money this year. And then here it lays out, you know, the percentage of income from different sources, whether it be the meals tax is the largest percentage, business licenses, so on and so forth. And again, this might be a little bit too fine grained, but it gives a, you know, an idea of what kind of money is coming in.
Can we put a chart in? I think this would be a great opportunity for a pie chart.
So I did an analysis of potential revenue, including a property tax, and I have some charts I'll just share with Lincoln from that report. And then that second paragraph, I have most of that in one form or another in that report, and then kind of the third one, so. I have some visual right up the line with what you're recommending there that we could reuse.
Yep. And then I just mentioned that, you know, the town's expenses have increased since 1994 when the boundary was increased. And also towns nationwide are encountering inflation in the last 2 years, and pandemic, you know, really threw off town budgets over the last 3 years, so they're kind of abnormal. And then the meals tax was increased from 4.5 to 6.5% in 2023. That was consideration. Just talking a little bit about how the town manages money, like the maintenance is a major concern for budget. And also the governance committee deals with mainly finances. So that's this text, and I definitely agree, once we kind of solidify this, pie chart or two would be nice to really graphically explain. So after this in the comp plan is the CIP section that I've already written and shared with the planning commission. So like I said, once I get the figures from Javier, then I'll tidy this up and send it to you.
Okay, and we'll review it and get back to you,
Yep, thank you.
right? Right,
Yes.
commissioners?
Okay, then the next file that I would like to show is, let me see here. The future land use and zoning chapter. This is the last chapter in the comp plan. This is about 15 to 16 pages, okay? So I've emailed this to you today. So basically, in the 2018 comp plan, there were some, I would call them light suggestions on how the zoning can be updated. And I think Mr. Wallace probably drafted this. One example would be, you know, amalgamate heavy industrial and light industrial into just industrial, okay? That's probably the simplest one, but yeah. But basically, this text explains, you know, what the land use plan is all about. There is a little bit of text that I'm a little bit worried about here about the tire factory. So what I'm going to suggest in a few minutes is we might have a sit-down session with two planning commissioners, and we can think about how this might be worded. So I know in the last comp plan, the tire factory was worded a certain way, so this might be another area that we might want to think about, because this text basically says that the tire factory is open to mixed use. And then the industry must be compatible with adjoining areas. The problem is, you know, industrial is by right, so it doesn't have to be compatible. It can just go in, and there can be a concrete plant there tomorrow, right? Potentially. So this is worded in a really weird way in my mind. Okay, so I'll just continue here. This is the old map of the future land use. So this I need to recreate in GIS because we can't find the file. But basically, for instance, this is the light industry that will just transition to industry, for instance.
The tire factory, since it, Would that be different since they put it on the historical register?
There'd just be an update on the historical map that we have, but that's a historical, district now.
Zoning would be different from the historic destination.
But for instance, what I noticed about this map, you see there's a big piece of purple there, but there's no purple in the legend. All it says here is transformative mixed use, so I don't really know what that means. Anyway,
It's not funny, it's just fun.
I think because they were trying to make it to mixed use, so that's why it says transformative. I think that's supposed to be the same color purple.
right, and that makes sense, like thinking about how the text is written, but I think it was never implemented by in the ordinance.
Well, the planning commission had before us several years ago, a proposal to change the zoning to, I don't remember if it was light industrial or village residential. Commercial or something residential, and we voted it down. So maybe that would have been the avenue, I don't know.
There's a fog, oh, sorry.
So it's again, this is a signaling process.
There's a what?
This is fog on the-
Is that a frog? Oh,
Yes.
that is a frog on the window. How did it get up to the second floor?
You're just trying to avoid the flood.
Yeah,
Is he crying from outside? Is he outside?
so, coming back to the tire factory, for instance,
It's an omen, I'm sorry. I
Yeah.
have to go now.
so it's a question of, does the planning commission want to leave the tire factory, for instance, how it is zoned, it's currently, the zoning ordinance is light industrial. And the proposal here in the document is to change all industrial to just industrial, not differentiate it to light and heavy.
Well, what is the difference between light and heavy?
Okay, so then we'll scroll down here towards the suggested areas.
There's nothing in the current
Okay.
zoning that says light industrial in that area? I thought there was a light industrial already, yeah. Well, I thought,
So
maybe that's what they wanted us to change the zoning to.
so basically, there are two light industrial and heavy industrial
I'm sorry.
proposals to go to industry.
Well, there's probably love outside.
Is that,
Oh, she knows roads.
I think it's called upland forest, something. I've seen it before, but something to do with that.
The silver tree tops have the yellow leaves.
Get a question about the designation between light and heavy.
Well, so there's two questions. Do you have? Molly had asked about the difference between the two, but the other question is, do we have anything in town that is currently zoned light industrial? And I don't have my email on my phone.
Let's pull up the current conflict.
Oh,
That's a good break. I feel rejuvenated.
Okay. So here's the current comp plan. So.
So currently it's zoned light industrial.
The tire factory.
Correct. And then the designation. There's various uses you can have under light industrial, as you can imagine. From commercial to something heavier, but the big distinction with heavy industry, which is chapter 4 of our zoning. Is that it could be railways, public water, and then. There's a little bit more lenience, let's see. with the use there, so. I mean, it makes sense to condense it in our zoning.
So then do we have anything that's zoned heavy industrial aside from the railroad, which isn't even in our town?
And it wouldn't be, yeah, and it wouldn't be zoned, heavy industrial for us. We don't zone the railroad, it's unzoned. Which is a general practice of railroads.
Okay,
Um,
so we don't have anything zoned heavy industrial.
no, and then the only thing that would maybe make sense is a factory, the current factory, but
Right.
it's now zoned like.
Yeah, so here's our zoning map, light industrial LI, so it's right there.
That's accurate.
The only, my suggestion is we leave it alone. The reason I think we should leave it alone is because it was so controversial. Anything we try to do to change it, everybody's gonna. In other words, I don't think there's any. I see zero reason we should do anything with this in the comp plan to address this.
Well, I mean, I know it's in the west downtown small area plan, so that's pretty big. That it should, we said it should be mixed use, but I don't know, I'm on the fence about what we should do for the comp plan.
Well, and that was a big point of contention when it was up for consideration anyway, is that there was no mixed use, but that had been outright really small.
And it was a viable option, or so we thought at the time. We're led to believe at the time, but then maybe it's not the only option. We need to put all our eggs in that basket.
Or my other suggestion is if we really want to debate this, let's not debate it now, when we do it next week.
Yeah.
Like, in other words, this is a really big deal to the town, this particular issue. And like whatever we do, like whatever we do with it, it gets into a pretty big issue.
Well, I don't think we have to decide that then, right?
Well, we're kind of, that's what it's kind of asking.
So.
Oh, I know, but I mean, yeah.
We have to
put it in the
create a,
conflict.
we have to create a future land use plan.
Right.
Yeah.
So we can leave it how it was in the last comp plan.
We could just make it really vague.
Well, stupid question. Can you change somebody else, the zoning of somebody else's property?
No, we have to go through all the process.
Right.
But this is just our recommendation.
But typically, existing property would be grandfathered in. So we could change, your home to industrial, you could reside there, it's residential, until you want to, tear down your house and build something new, then you have to provide the industry. You know, theoretically speaking.
So.
Right.
I guess my recommendation is we move on from this right now, because this is a big issue that we're not gonna solve. with this. I mean, if y'all wanna talk about it for an hour, I mean, this is a big issue.
No, all right, well, did you send us
Yes.
that?
So I sent you this document, I'll just quickly recap
Oh, you
other
sent us that.
other areas. Commercial was recommended to change it to mixed use. So that goes back to some of that small area plan intention. Residential R3 to town residential. Village residential to updates. And I assume this was Mr. Wallace, he had current zoning and then, he even drafted up what should be deleted or changed.
Well, we did a whole lot of work on village residential. His notes are updated, they're current. Or were they from 3 years ago?
Well, this is from 2018 comp plan.
Okay, because we did make changes to village residential, so we may have addressed what he was asking us to. He had brought it up. So it's possible that our zoning has already been changed with those.
Okay.
How about staff research that and as we share it out? we
Yeah.
update planning commission.
But in the meantime, you did send us the email, so maybe you want to just spend some time looking at what our current zoning is to see if we already made these changes to village residential and
So,
industrial.
I mean, I've got village residential here, chapter 9.
Mhm. One of the points is a variety of housing types. Which is updated there, and then you are allowed single dwelling duplexes, semi-attached. Rentals.
Yeah.
So this is the change, this red text was proposed to be deleted. And when I printed this last year, it was still there. So this is, so this update was never made.
That's all included in there.
Yeah, so then industrial is still split into two different sections. That's 13 light industrial and 14. So this suggestion of amalgamating industrial was never made either.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, we can go back through and double check. I do have a sheet from Mr. Laws. He gave me all his updates when he left. But they were very minor lots that were never updated in the zoning map. Here it is. Yeah. This is from February 1st, 2021 Planning Commission meeting. He listed the map amendments, zoning text amendments, so on and so forth. That he recommended, but I don't think any of these were ever made or enacted.
And also, you know, the opinion agrees, 9 to 5, we don't have to address it tonight. This is a lot and I want to spend more time looking at it, but we also have to plan for the future. So if we do take more land, say, for example, 20 north of Charlottesville, there could be capacity for heavy industrial use there. So.
Or there could be
we don't want to.
new types of industry we can think about today, like new types of electric vehicles, drones, so on, manufactured in new ways. So, you know, in the next 20 years, there could be a lot of different types of manufacturing. We don't know. So I think it could be useful to definitely maintain industrial use. It's just a question whether you think light and heavy is a good differentiation.
You said that the heavy had a little bit more leniency on certain items. So the amalgamation may not be. He's suggesting to basically eliminate
away,
that.
I know.
Yeah.
I know, but I'm just saying that, you know. I don't know, it seems to be a pretty big difference between the light industrial and pulling them together. Would there be the same kind of protections or considerations for that? Just to, I guess maybe I should lead into that and see if I have any questions at that point.
What I guess we could do is we could extract these sections, put them into Word docs, so it's easy for you to compare side by side.
Yeah.
With the existing text that's codified versus what was envisioned in the last comp plan, you know what I mean? I think it's a process we all need to do. Because Mr. Wallace, for instance, not here, he had a lot of stuff in his mind. Yeah. So that'll be a good process. And me, myself, I'm not advocating for anything. This is just what was in the previous document, and I touched it up a little bit in terms of wordage and the front matter and so forth. But I think it's a good process because if we don't catch a lot of these things from this, for instance, 2021 February meeting, we're just going to be left by the wayside another 5 years. You know what I mean? So whatever the planning commission wants to kind of catch up on, whether it be a few small lots that aren't updated on the zoning map, how they should be, or bigger things, which this is kind of time to catch all, you know, or it's never going to be caught.
It's not the same issue that they had about the building one, the purple building. It involved that.
Yeah, and then the problem is errors do occur and then, you know, miscommunications occur and it becomes a problem.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll bring together that text for you. Okay, let me just keep going on the PowerPoint, we just have, I believe, one more section here. Okay, we covered that.
Calendar?
Calendar, yes, today is the 6th of May. What I'm proposing is to sit down with 2 planning commissioners, if possible, maybe on the Monday, the 20th or the 21st. And we can talk through a lot of more of these small things. For instance, I was reading today that in the previous, existing comp plan, there was a big push for recycling center. But and working with the, I haven't heard anyone talking about a recycling center last year. So is that still a?
We have one right up.
We have the-
Keen, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. So since it's at Keen, we
We're
just
good.
cut that out, yeah, because no one's talking about it.
Well,
Well, it's more sustainable, okay. So, yeah, these things I just need to kind of run through these small but important things.
Well, that's interesting because, recycling centers aren't what they used to be either. I don't know that I feel like they're gonna be doing the level of, recycling that they would have done.
The Keen is basically a drop off yourself deal.
Yeah, yeah. No, I understand. I'm just saying that, I think recycling has
It's
zeroed in.
Not what
on
it used to be.
us.
like,
Yeah.
In terms of marketing.
So,
I think the market's changed.
it's,
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same thing that happened on Ontario. Is over in Canada. That's actually more, because they take trash.
Okay, so that's just one example, but if 2 commissioners would like to sit down with me, I'll be glad to be here, or we can do it by Zoom if that's easier for you. And this also gives me a good, interim deadline to get more text done. Yeah.
are
So
you waiting for volunteers?
if you'd like to volunteer, yes,
I'd be glad to sit down with you.
okay, thank you. You'd like to do it in Scottsville?
Yeah.
Okay,
I do it.
okay. So whichever works.
I can't believe you guys didn't jump at it. I'm happy to see you guys volunteer. I love that. Okay.
So,
Mayor, can you say,
yeah, so let's see, the 20th would be, town council. We could do it in the side room or wherever else. Days, yeah. When is days closed, sometime?
Yeah, like 5 o'clock.
Okay.
Out the door.
Yeah. Let's see.
Margarita.
They have like a slushy machine. Are those margaritas? Mm.
So,
Find out.
I mean, I'll look at my calendar, I'll email you, but maybe I prefer the 20th because on the 22nd, I'm driving to Kansas the next week. So,
Oh,
The
yeah.
20th of May.
I think the 20th of May would be ideal for me, yeah.
At what time?
We could do 7 PM on normal time.
Okay.
So I'll just send a calendar invite to you both.
Thank you.
You could flip over then, like, as you're talking, you could zoom into the latter part of the town council meeting that night.
Yes,
It's the same night.
yeah.
I need a drink by then. 18th is the 5K, because you're all signing up. And then the 19th, we'll be meeting at the police department, the Boy Scouts meeting in Thursday.
Oh, exciting.
So on the 20th.
I have an MRI on the 19th, so I'll be there.
But
For
on
your
on the
Boy
18th, we can
Scouts.
see there. 5K.
That's good that y'all know.
Okay, thank you for the population projection. So now I can finalize the draft transportation plan and send it to you. And we can talk about that. I think the transportation plan is really important, so this one, we'll definitely have the draft by the 20th. We can go through in detail. And then sit around that meeting. Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, awesome. This is a lot of work.
yeah, it's a lot of detailed text, and we're at that stage. And so you saw the statistics for the census. That's really heavy stuff. Yeah,
Well, and like so much of it has been heavy, and you just jumped in and like analyzed everything and found all sorts of things that no one picked up before. And that's why I appreciate when you say, if we don't deal with it now, it's not gonna get dealt with, because no one's going to pick it up and look at it that way again.
Yeah, I mean, right now for all of us, we just have, I just have scraps of paper and we have our parking lot, near document, shared drive. So I also emailed today the link to our comp plan document, if you want to take a look at anything, anything that's highlighted in yellow, I either, if it's a word or two, I have questions, like just to double check, or if it's a whole section, that's a section I haven't quite redrafted yet.
Look, I was looking through it, it looked good.
Super. Okay, so I'll be back on the 20th. This is my last week of classes, so I'm chugging along. 2 out of the 4 classes are done. My last semester of classes ever too.
Wow.
So I'm moving to Tangier Island in August. Yeah. So
Wow.
I was there last weekend doing oral histories and such, and checking out places to live.
That's awesome.
Pretty
That's
exciting.
really exciting.
But yeah, I'll be.
Is that in Maryland?
It's on the Virginia side. It's the last inhabited island in Virginia, in Chesapeake. And the Smith Island is the last inhabited island in Maryland.
When are you gonna be moving?
I'm gonna be helping them with their comp plan.
It sounds like they need to talk too.
So I've just learned so much from this process. So I'm really excited to carry that forward. They have about 325 residents. They also don't have like the exact number either. They used to have 1,200 in 1930. And the population is really dipping now because it's remote. The economy of the waterland is not so great right now. And the aging population.
And they can't expand their boundaries.
Yes.
Yeah, full Scottsville.
They've lost 66% of their land since 1850.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm doing in August, but I'm glad to continue.
I hope you're getting a rental, not buying.
Yes,
Oh my God. How sweet their numbers.
I am talking about rentals.
Are your kids excited to be there?
Well, it's the last combined school in Virginia,
What is that?
K through 12.
Oh, wow.
So on the ferry from Tangier to Chrisfield, I by chance sat next to the principal. She was going back to the mainland. So I learned everything about the school. That can't remember the number, but I think they have around 35 to 40 students right now. In K through 12.
Oh, wow. Could you imagine with all that we do having to have school all? Wow, that would be a challenge for you. Yet you'd be uniquely suited for your experience for dating. Oh, not there.
Everything's been arranged since birth.
Okay. Can we have? Yes, it was. Did you have a motion, please?
I motion to adjourn the meeting.
I second that. All right, all in favor?
Hi.
Thank you. Thanks, Liz. If you missed anything, reach out and I'll try to fill you in.
Sounds good. You guys have a good week. Bye.
Motion to adjourn, Strassner.
Yeah,
Second, we need to
voted, vote the